In 2012, Disney buried $200 million in the Martian desert. That same year, a Colombian family musical collected dust in half-empty theaters before exploding into the most streamed movie in history. These weren't just box office disappointments. They were films that Hollywood tried to erase, projects that studios abandoned, and stories that audiences ignored until streaming gave them a second chance at life. One animated masterpiece was so thoroughly sabotaged that its sequel was canceled while the voice actors waited in the recording booth. Another was released with literally zero marketing dollars spent. And one film spent 3 decades climbing from forgotten failure to the #1 rated movie on Earth. You won't believe #1. Treasure Planet wasn't just a box office bomb. It was the most expensive failure in Disney animation history. Directors John Musker and Ron Clements, the legendary duo behind The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, first pitched this concept in 1985, Treasure Island in Space. Disney rejected it 3 times over 17 years before Roy E. Disney himself championed the project into existence. The studio poured $140 million into groundbreaking animation that blended traditional hand-drawn artistry with cutting-edge computer graphics. McDonald's, Pepsi, and Kellogg's signed on as promotional partners. Disney released it simultaneously in regular theaters and IMAX, a first for any animated film. Then Thanksgiving 2002 arrived. Treasure Planet opened to a catastrophic $12 million over 5 days, finishing 4th behind Harry Potter. Disney took a $74 million write-down. Their stock dropped 9%. But here's the twist that still haunts animation fans. A sequel was already 8 months into production. Willem Dafoe had been cast as the villain. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Emma Thompson were returning. Then executives made a single phone call to the recording studio in New York. Dafoe was 30 minutes away from recording his first lines when the entire project was canceled. He never spoke a single word. Today, Treasure Planet is regularly called the most underrated film in Disney history. Its streaming numbers on Disney Plus have sparked ongoing petitions for a sequel or live-action remake. But that resurrection pales compared to what happened to the next film on our list. Idiocracy is the film that 20th Century Fox tried to make disappear. Director Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, delivered a satirical comedy about a future where humanity has become catastrophically unintelligent. Fox's response was unprecedented in Hollywood history. The studio spent exactly $0 on marketing. No trailers, no TV spots, no press screenings, no press kits. A USC marketing professor with 40 years of experience called it the most complete burial of a theatrical release he had ever witnessed. Fox released Idiocracy in just 130 theaters across 7 cities for approximately 1 week. A typical wide release uses 600 theaters minimum. The theatrical gross landed at $444,093. But DVD rentals earned $9 million, more than 20 times what it made in theaters. Terry Crews, who played President Camacho, later revealed that Fox may have buried the film because real corporations like Starbucks were portrayed in unflattering ways they hadn't anticipated when signing promotional deals. Mike Judge told the New York Times that Fox believed the film would develop a cult following through DVD, similar to Office Space. They were right. Today, Idiocracy trends on social media during every election cycle, its satirical predictions feeling more prophetic with each passing year. Luke Wilson has been aggressively pitching sequel ideas ever since, but the next film on our list makes Idiocracy's burial look almost accidental. Annihilation starred Natalie Portman and was directed by Alex Garland, the visionary behind Ex Machina. Paramount Pictures decided it was too intelligent for audiences. That's not speculation. Financier David Ellison reportedly told the studio directly, "I don't understand this movie." After poor test screenings, Ellison demanded changes, including altering the ending and making Portman's character more sympathetic. Producer Scott Rudin backed Garland's vision. The standoff ended with Paramount selling international streaming rights to Netflix, essentially admitting they had no faith in their own product. The film received a theatrical release only in the United States, Canada, and China. Annihilation earned $43 million worldwide against a $55 million budget. Paramount scheduled it against Black Panther's second weekend, all but conceding defeat. Then Netflix gave it to the world. The film holds 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. Former President Barack Obama listed it among his favorite films of 2018. Critics now call it one of the best science fiction movies of the decade. Make no mistake, streaming didn't just save this film. It proved that theatrical distribution can actively sabotage ambitious cinema, and that pattern becomes even clearer with the next entry. Clue invented a theatrical gimmick that destroyed its own box office. Based on the Hasbro board game, the film featured 3 different endings. Each theater received only one version, with newspapers listing which ending, labeled A, B, or C, each location was showing. The idea was that audiences would pay multiple times to see every conclusion. Instead, audiences decided they didn't know which ending to go see, so they didn't go at all. Director Jonathan Lynn later acknowledged the strategy backfired spectacularly. The film earned $14.6 million against a $15 million budget. Critics dismissed it. Roger Ebert wrote that fun was in short supply. Then came VHS. For the first time, all 3 endings appeared on a single tape. Audiences could finally experience the complete film. Tim Curry's legendary performance as Wadsworth and Madeline Kahn's entirely improvised "Flames on the Side of My Face" monologue became endlessly quotable. Shadowcast performances emerged, similar to Rocky Horror screenings. The film influenced Rian Johnson's Knives Out franchise decades later. A 4th ending was filmed but cut, one where Wadsworth himself committed all the acts. Carrie Fisher was originally contracted for Miss Scarlet before entering treatment. Today, Clue streams on Netflix, Paramount Plus, and Amazon Prime, with a remake in active development. But the next film proves that even brilliant animation cannot survive studio incompetence. The Iron Giant is Brad Bird's masterpiece, and Warner Brothers did everything possible to ensure nobody saw it. The studio had just suffered through Quest for Camelot's failure, which led executives to slash the Iron Giant's marketing budget to nearly nothing. They chose to promote Will Smith's Wild Wild West instead. That film also flopped. Test screening scores for the Iron Giant were Warner Brothers' highest for any film in 15 years, yet they had no marketing strategy prepared. Brad Bird later admitted he made a critical error. When Warner Brothers wanted to delay the release to build awareness, he pushed for the original date. The film opened opposite The Sixth Sense during the Blair Witch Project's peak run. The Iron Giant earned $31.3 million worldwide against a $50 million budget. Then Warner Brothers spent $35 million marketing the home video release, vastly more than they ever spent theatrically. The studio essentially admitted their mistake and tried to fix it. The film sold over 4.5 million videos and DVDs by 2004. Cartoon Network aired it continuously for 24 hours on holidays, building an audience through sheer repetition. Today, it holds 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and is universally regarded as one of the greatest animated films ever made. The Iron Giant appeared in Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. A fan campaign successfully pushed Warner Bros. To create a proper Blu-ray release in 2015, but the next film took even longer to find its audience. Jennifer's Body was deliberately destroyed by its own marketing team. Written by Oscar winner Diablo Cody and directed by Karen Kusama, the film was a feminist horror satire about exploitation and female rage. The studio marketed it exclusively to teenage boys, using posters focused on Megan Fox's appearance. Kusama specifically warned them not to target that demographic, knowing they would be disappointed. The film earned $31.5 million worldwide against a $16 million budget. Critics dismissed it. Audiences expecting something entirely different felt misled. The theatrical run was considered a failure. Then something extraordinary happened. Around 2017, Jennifer's Body began trending across TikTok, Tumblr, and Letterboxd. The Me Too movement gave audiences new context for its themes of exploitation and survival. Musicians including Olivia Rodrigo and Madison Beer cited it as major inspiration. Universities began teaching it in film courses. Megan Fox now calls Jennifer Check her favorite role ever. Director Kusama expressed gratitude that the film found its audience on a different timeline than anyone expected. Yes, really. In October 2025, she confirmed that Diablo Cody is writing a sequel, describing it as fun and crazy like the original. A film that was a decade ahead of its culture is finally getting a second chapter. But the next entry proves that sometimes it takes even longer for the world to catch up. Scott Pilgrim versus the world lost to The Expendables. That sentence alone explains why box office results mean nothing. Edgar Wright's hyperkinetic comic book adaptation opened in August 2010 against Sylvester Stallone's action ensemble and Julia Roberts' Eat, Pray, Love. The The recession had emptied the wallets of its college-age target audience, and critics proclaimed Michael Cera fatigue had peaked. The film earned $47 million worldwide against an $85 million budget. Universal considered it a significant loss. But look at that cast through the lens of 2025. Chris Evans before Captain America, Brie Larson before Captain Marvel, Anna Kendrick before her explosion into A-list status, Aubrey Plaza before Parks and Recreation fame, and Kieran Culkin before Succession. Home video sales of $28 million domestic proved the film had found its people. The cult following grew so massive that Netflix produced an anime adaptation in 2023, reuniting the entire original cast for voice roles. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Animated Series. Edgar Wright's response to critics who mocked the theatrical failure says everything. The fact that you're not doing a 10th anniversary article about The Expendables says it all. Pop culture didn't reject Scott Pilgrim. Pop culture simply hadn't caught up yet. And that pattern continues with the next entry. Office Space was dumped by Fox despite a marketing campaign that included a man working in a glass cubicle 17 stories above Times Square with a giant "Work Sucks" billboard. The studio told Mike Judge to try casting Ben Affleck and Matt Damon while simultaneously limiting his budget. The film opened at number 8 with $4.2 million. By early March, Fox had pulled it from 75% of screens. Office Space earned $12.1 million worldwide against a $10 million budget. Then it became one of Fox's all-time best-selling home video titles, moving over 6 million DVDs in the United States alone. Comedy Central airings introduced it to millions more. The cultural penetration became extraordinary. TGI Fridays reportedly dropped their flare button requirement for waitstaff because customers wouldn't stop quoting the movie. Swingline created an official red stapler after overwhelming demand. That stapler didn't even exist as a product before the film. By 2003, Fox wanted to produce a sequel. Judge declined. A real software engineer named Hermenildo Valdez Castro was later inspired by the film's plot to conduct a similar financial scheme. NBC offered Judge the chance to shape the American version of The Office specifically because of this film's influence. But the next entry represents an even more dramatic journey from disaster to discovery. John Carter holds the record for the largest financial loss on this list. $200 million written off by Disney just 10 days after release. Director Andrew Stanton, the Pixar legend behind Finding Nemo and Wall-E, treated his live-action debut like an animation production, scrapping and reshooting extensively until the budget ballooned to $350 million, including marketing. The supreme irony haunted every review. Edgar Rice Burroughs' 1912 source novel had inspired Star Wars, Avatar, and Flash Gordon, yet audiences accused John Carter of ripping off the very properties it predated by decades. Disney changed the title from John Carter of Mars to simply John Carter because executives feared association with Mars after Mars Needs Moms bombed the previous year. A Disney executive later called it one of the worst marketing campaigns in the history of movies. The film earned $284 million worldwide, requiring $600 million to break even. Taylor Kitsch thanked Netflix for the film's mini resurgence years later, noting audiences discovered it without the weight of a $350 million price tag distorting expectations. An animated John Carter of Mars series is now in development. Disney no longer owns the rights, but the next film's streaming success makes John Carter's revival look modest. Encanto underperformed at the Thanksgiving 2021 box office. Lingering pandemic concerns kept families home. Disney's own 30-day theatrical to streaming window cannibalized ticket sales. The film earned $256 million worldwide, considered disappointing for a major Disney animated musical. Then Christmas Eve arrived. Encanto debuted on Disney Plus and became the most streamed movie of 2022, with 27.4 billion minutes viewed according to Nielsen. It topped the streaming charts for over 20 consecutive weeks. But here's the twist that defies belief. We Don't Talk About Bruno became the biggest Disney song in 3 decades, spending 5 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was only the second Disney animated song ever to reach number 1. Yet Disney never submitted it for the Best Original Song Oscar. The Academy's deadline was November 1st, 2021, 3 weeks before Encanto even premiered and 2 months before anyone knew Bruno existed as a phenomenon. The song that spent 5 weeks atop the charts was never even eligible for an Academy Award. Disney submitted Dos Oruguitas instead. Encanto won Best Animated Feature anyway, plus a Golden Globe, a BAFTA, and 3 Grammys. An Encanto ride opens at Disney's Animal Kingdom in 2027. But the next film spent even longer building its empire. Hocus Pocus is a Halloween movie that Disney released in July. The studio wanted to avoid competing with their own Nightmare Before Christmas in October, so they dropped a film about witches and candy and trick-or-treating into the middle of summer. Roger Ebert gave it 1 star. Audiences stayed away. The film earned $44.9 million against a $28 million budget, a moderate loss. Then October happened. Every October. For 30 years. Home video made Hocus Pocus an annual tradition. Freeform's 31 Nights of Halloween airings drew 2.8 million viewers in a single 2011 broadcast. When Disney Plus launched, Hocus Pocus immediately became the #1 film every October. The franchise's validation came in 2022. Hocus Pocus 2 debuted with 2.7 billion minutes viewed in its first week, the most watched movie launch in Disney Plus history at that time. Leonardo DiCaprio was offered the role of Max, but turned it down. The Sanderson sisters now headline seasonal shows at Walt Disney World. Spirit Halloween stores have dedicated Hocus Pocus sections. Bette Midler revealed in October 2025 that a script for Hocus Pocus 3 has been written, but the next film revolutionized an entire format. Fight Club debuted at the Venice Film Festival, where Brad Pitt and Edward Norton were reportedly the only ones laughing. On opening weekend, domestic audiences barely showed up. The film earned $100.9 million worldwide against a $63 million budget. Its poor performance contributed to studio head Bill Mechanic's resignation. A Fox executive told director David Fincher directly, "Men do not want to see Brad Pitt with his shirt off. It makes them feel bad, and women don't want to see him covered in blood. So I don't know who you made this movie for." The DVD release changed everything. Entertainment Weekly ranked the 2-disc edition #1 on their list of the 50 essential DVDs. David Fincher confirmed it eventually sold 13 million copies. He included a hidden fake FBI warning written in Tyler Durden's voice, and had a negative review quote printed on the packaging as a badge of honor. Chuck Palahniuk's source novel had sold fewer than 5,000 copies in its first printing. The film rights cost $10,000. The New York Times dubbed Fight Club the defining cult movie of our time. It holds an 8.8 on IMDb, but the #1 spot belongs to something even more improbable. At first glance, The Shawshank Redemption looks like guaranteed success. Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, a Stephen King adaptation, critical acclaim, 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. The theater was empty. Director Frank Darabont went to the Cinerama Dome on opening night and found virtually no one there. He and his producer ended up selling 2 of their own tickets to passersby outside. The film opened against Pulp Fiction and during Forrest Gump's 42-week theatrical domination. It earned $16 million domestically before Oscar nominations drove a re-release. Stephen King had essentially given away the adaptation rights for a handshake. Tim Robbins blamed the unmemorable title for years. "People would come up to me and say, 'What was that shink-shonk reduction thing?'" Morgan Freeman agreed. Then TNT purchased the broadcast rights cheaply because of the poor theatrical performance. They aired it constantly. Home video sales exceeded $80 million. The 1995 VHS release became that year's top seller with over 320,000 rental copies shipped. Today, The Shawshank Redemption holds the #1 position on IMDb's top 250 with a 9.3 rating from 3.1 million votes. It sits above The Godfather, above The Dark Knight, above every film ever made in the eyes of the voting public. The movie nobody saw in theaters became the highest-rated movie on Earth. That is the power of time, persistence, and a second chance. Some of these films were buried by their own studios. Some were released at impossible moments against unstoppable competition. Others were simply ahead of their time, waiting for culture to catch up to what they had already created. What they all share is proof that opening weekend is not destiny. Streaming erased the 3 factors that destroyed these films: marketing failures, bad timing, and the brutal mathematics of theatrical distribution. On streaming, Films find their audiences organically through algorithms, word of mouth, and the one thing theaters never allow: unlimited second chances. Were these films failures? Or were they simply waiting for the world to be ready? How many of these have you watched since they left theaters? Which streaming redemption story surprised you most? If you made it this far, that like button has earned a click. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about Hollywood's greatest miscalculations and unexpected triumphs. Because sometimes the best films are the ones that had to fight their way back from the dead. See you in the next one.